it feels good to be back. I feel like I'm a guest almost with how I just be in and out of the show sometimes. Yeah.
Well, we'll get rolling, man. Wait for him.
Let it play. Yeah. Let's get this going. Right on time. Right on time. It's crazy. He kind of gets his own view coming down the basement, Let's go.
I didn't laugh at that.
I know. I realized that by the way you told the phone. That'd have been awkward if he was walking like that. Bear with me. A little bit of a cold here. Yeah, we ready to do it. Let the music play while you walk in.
That's your own thing, so.
Yeah, it's probably the most they've ever heard the song too. They're like, oh, man. Didn't know.
Welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. Great show planned for you tonight. You got myself, Chris Pender Sr.
Chris Jr., as always, here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community.
Devin Pender just here to remind you to like, follow, subscribe, and share to Above Average Black Men. That's A2BM on all platforms.
Yeah.
Oh, man, exciting show tonight, man. We're going to talk about the topic of the show tonight is why not vote? Election day is coming up next Tuesday.
It almost seems like you plugging it, like why you shouldn't do it.
What's the question? Why not vote?
Not?
It's a question. Why not vote?
Wait, shit. I understand.
Why should you vote? That makes sense.
So we're going to spend the show debating about that.
About
how I phrase the topic.
I'm just setting the tone, really, honestly, because that's how.
Because you've been away, so you got to get your digs in early.
Exactly.
All right. So, but I want to start with the quote, and then we get into this. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter."
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important that we vote. And my disclaimer before we get into the show is we're not saying vote Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian. We're just saying that you should vote. And the importance of voting. And one tidbit, and then I'll let you guys jump in, is that I notice is a large population, they don't vote. And then another group of people who don't vote, they only vote in the presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I wanted to kind of talk about and get into. One of the areas of voting is that I think it really got popular when we talk about the presidential election, specifically for me. I know my era, when it came for Barack Obama, that's when people tend to really pay attention and like really care for voting. And I don't think it was, you don't nearly see as much hype or glamour around voting any other time. Or if you do, I don't think we're well enough educated. I think we really, from my perspective, again, I don't know if anyone can share any different. But I think a big part of it is the lack of education, and just the presidency was probably just more glamorized. That's really the only thing that people say, hey, get out and vote for this.
I would definitely say as I have gotten older, I'm starting to really understand it more. Just like you said, like back in the day, like the first time I voted, I was only voting because it was Obama. And I was like, because he's black. I just want to see a black man there. Where now it's just like you kind of think a little more consciously of different policies of this person can do, what this person may or may not do. So the older you get, I feel like the more wiser.
Yes.
Well, I think, Chris, it's a combination of both. Because I've been doing impromptu surveys, talk to a bunch of people, and it's funny you should say that because I think what happens is people become more educated when it's the presidential because there's only two people.
Sure.
And there's so many ads out there. Everybody's talking about it. So they pay a little more attention.
Right.
The other things, because a lot of people told me they don't vote in the primaries because they don't know who candidates.
That is,
And there's so many of them. They like, I don't know,
right?
Because there's so many of them, and I'm like, wait a minute, but you got a phone. You can Google on your phone now in time, but people don't take the time because I think people also, the third thing, don't view the primary as being important.
Yes.
Not understanding that's where the laws are made, that's where the bills are passed, and
people who are really influential in this process.
Created. But so those three things are so evident. And it's funny because, I got to get the stats together. Young people had the lowest turnout, man. It was just kind of funny when I did my research. It says ever since 18 years were given the right to vote in 1972, youth has been underrepresented at the polls as of 2003. It's crazy. Voter turnout is highest among those ages 65 to 74 at 76%, while the percentage was lowest among the ages 18 to 24 at 51.4%. And it's funny because remember I told you that
anymore.
18 to but it's because it's what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Is what we just talked about. And sometimes we've had this conversation off air and it just statistics
kind of show
what the stuff that we've been talking about.
Right. I think it's just there's a lack in belief or trust, from the younger generation or population that and I feel like I'm saying that like I'm an old man, younger generation, younger population, because I feel like I felt like within that same area around as well, where it's like it's hard to trust people, especially when you were talking about there's so many people to choose from and you don't know any of their names. I mean, in today's kind of climate and culture, all you really hear is the negative side of kind of politics and how they aren't really doing anything.
In my opinion, this is a little it's surprising you say that it's not that much turnout for the youth, because I feel like everywhere I go, I'm getting asked to work the polls, or like I see people with the sticker and all that.
Like younger people?
Yeah. So like now I'm kind of confused. Like, how is that so?
Well, because check it out.
They also fight the man.
Because they said a third of Americans didn't vote.
They just be talking.
A third of Americans didn't vote. Almost 80, even though the last presidential election, the turnout was the highest ever, still almost 80 million people didn't vote.
Nah.
Almost 80 million people didn't vote. So there's people my age who didn't vote, who said they weren't voting. It's kind of funny because there's a commercial that comes on doing, if you watch, like I was watching a baseball game, it on football, so it must be on the sports channel, with this young African American is talking about late night, a conversation having with his friends why they don't vote. And the Martin Luther King kind of comes behind it, what happened. But it's funny because it kind of makes you think about it, because when I get into this conversation, the first thing people say is people die for you to have the right to vote. That's the lead-off thing.
Right.
And it should, but that doesn't resonate with this generation. That just, it doesn't play well. And I was talking to a young man today, and he said, I said, well, no, let me tell you, really what happens is when you don't vote, you remain silent. When you remain silent, whoever wins. Typically, the person who makes the most noise wins. And you got to look at what it means. And to your point, and I'll get back to that, but I'm going to read the reasons why people don't vote. I want to get there because you talked about it.
But that was also a great point, though.
It says, these are the reasons. One, not being registered, they don't count. Not being interested in politics, not liking the candidates. We've had that discussion before. Yeah. A feeling like your vote wouldn't have made a difference, and undecided to whom to vote for. These are the top reasons why people don't vote.
And again, it's like, how do you solve some of these issues? I know you say it's easy. You'll go on your phone and look up the people, but it's like they so easily put nonsense in front of you.
And they're trying to make it easier for you to vote.
This is not my solution.
And I always feel like I see the wrong people. You know what I mean? More than anything else.
A young person said this to me, so this is not my solution. I would like to take credit for it. And when I was in school, we had a political science class, so we learned about the political system and the way it works and all the things. They need to go back to that in school. He said, because they don't teach that in school. They don't teach you how to follow election. I mean, they don't teach you how, to understand the thing. They just say vote. Yeah, they just tell you to vote. They go back to, and this is not a generation. They don't relate to history well. So they don't get it when you start talking about the 60s and things. Like if I talk to a bunch of young people and I start talking about slavery, they start telling me what they would do.
Right.
Man, I wouldn't take that, man. I'll be fighting back. I'll be doing it, because they can't contextualize the time frame. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing when you start telling people die for you the right to vote, in their mind, that's back then.
Yeah, they don't have no real
Yeah.
ties to that. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, and then what? Like, what does that have to do with me today?
But yeah, so when I explained to him, you know, a group of guys I was talking to today, when I began to explain to him that, nah, see, when you don't vote, all the bad stuff you don't like, you allow that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, somebody said, well, you know, it don't matter because, you know, the way they got it to break down the boundaries, and he talked about the, you know, the process. I said, no, but they changed the boundaries because people let them get in office.
Mm.
That's where your vote matters. If you don't let them get in office, then the electoral college, they don't change the boundaries so they can have the power to get them in that way. So your vote matters.
Yeah, and I think kind of
that's
to your
the part
point,
people
something you
forget.
said a little bit earlier is just that, you know, your silence probably does more damage than anything else because it's the loudest person or the most active people, you know, that are kind of getting the final say on a decision and things, you know. And it's, again, evident in what's going on in this country, I would say, currently between the bickering back and forth. But
yeah, we have there's such a huge vacuum in effective leadership in this country.
Yeah, I was going to say, when it seems like it's so much divisiveness between the two parties, it's like, where do you feel like, you know, how can you encourage people to vote?
Well, both sides, and on both sides of the aisle, they're in there because people think about it. Those 80 million people would have voted. That's an election right there.
Like people that feel like they don't know which way they can go.
Right? But we allow those people who on both sides of the aisles, you know, who are morons, who are idiots, who say stupid stuff, we allow them to get in office, and there's no accountability. For instance, we'll vote for somebody because we like them. They can be lousy for 4 years.
Or they talk to one point that you like.
Yeah, you know, and we won't get to that. They can be lousy for 4 years. And next time we see them is when it's a time to be elected again. We vote for them again because we know the name. Mm-hmm. They've done nothing for our schools. They've done nothing for our communities. They've done nothing to assist us in any games. Mm-hmm. But I know the name, so I just put a lever. You know, and we do this over and over again, and we hope there's no accountability. Like when Obama was in office, and people, educated people, he's not doing anything for black people. But that guy has been your state senator or your councilman for 20 years. Right. He's done nothing. If you're not helping, you didn't hold him accountable. Yeah. You know, he comes in neighborhood every time it's time to get elected, kiss a few babies, visit your church, hallelujah, you know, do all the stuff he's supposed to do. And then you pull the lever and you don't see him again.
Right. And it starts at that lower level, like you said. And I think we got to start to try to encourage people to have as much energy that they do for the presidency as they do within kind of.
But I think you have to educate, and you said you have to educate people, which means, like for instance, when I was after school program for middle school kids, we did a mock election. I wanted to teach them about it. We did a mock election. Yeah, we had them. You know, I had 2 adults, 2 of my staff running for office, and they had to give speeches, and the kids had to listen to the speeches and vote. You know, and everybody liked it. We can do
Did
stuff
you fire
like
whoever
that.
lost?
You know, I didn't think about that. Think about you do election. No, but it was pretty cool because we taught them about the process. Yeah. You know, we taught them about the process.
Now that's interesting, but how do you get that more, like, I guess, across the city or the state? Because, like you said, you want more people to vote, but you just don't want them to vote blindly.
Well, because you got to get it needs to become a part of this educational system. You know, the problem with it is there's people.
Maybe they don't want it to be there.
That's I was about to say that. Because you got to realize, man,
education and voting goes hand in hand.
Yeah, no, Obama got elected because he was able to get your population, a large population of African American youth, you know, to get out there and vote, who hadn't voted before and probably hadn't voted since, like you said. But he was able to motivate them. Yeah. So that is a population, you know, that became a grave concern. If you go back and look at states like Georgia, that's why they're trying to change the voting laws, because they don't want
largest African American vote.
They don't want them to come out and vote. You know, they try to take them out. So they're saying now, if you can't even, if somebody's waiting in line, you had churches giving out water because the lines are so long because of the backup. What they did was they reduced the number of polls, so people got to wait in line because they want to discourage. Because black folk ain't waiting in line to vote. You know, we waiting in line for sneakers and tickets, but we ain't waiting in line to vote. You know,
I don't waiting in line for anything.
So no, but I'm just saying. So then they said, okay, well, people were bringing them water and chairs and stuff to sit down there. Now that's illegal. So what happens when you don't vote? Those people get in office that can pass those kind of laws. Yeah. Now, to me, I'm voting next time just to get them out of office. Right. You know, they're making it more and more difficult. You know, or somebody's 80 years old, been voting their entire life, and now they got to have 2 pieces of ID. You know. I mean, come on. And most people that age, they're set in their ways. If that one piece of ID is probably what they have. It's not like they have driver's license. I mean, it's not like they got, a state ID. Most of them don't because, especially now with direct deposit, there's no real reason to have it because you don't have to go to the bank anymore.
So I'm interested to kind of know, like, what were your grandparents and parents like feelings around that time when it was like time to vote?
But it was different because my parents were on me about voting. My grandma, she was on me about voting because they remember the times it was difficult to vote. Mm-hmm. Like my grandmother would talk about the times where you would go to the polls and white people wouldn't let them be out there threatening. Mm-hmm. People were afraid to vote because I'm not going to do anything to Devin now because we're in here, but I know where you live, I know where you work at, so people were terrorized. So she would talk about that. So they were kind of on that whole mind frame, where people died for this because she lived on that time. And my parents were close to that time because they were hearing it firsthand stories. Right. So that was the message that you heard. Mm-hmm. People died for this. And the message resonated because you would still see images, black and white images on TV, dogs being sick on people. And you saw a lot of civil rights stuff. Right. It was a part of history. So even in school, you saw those images. So you kind of could, there was a correlation between what we went through to get to where we are now. Mm-hmm. But nobody's seeing those images now.
Right.
And
I think our message kind of needs to change. Like that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it does.
Kind of, we can't keep using the same kind of fight or the same kind of tactics to kind of get people to vote. Like,
come on, if I showed up when I started singing "Fight the Power,"
I like that.
but remember when I wanted to name the show? Remember I was going to name the show? You got the power. What the first thing y'all said? It's like the 70s. So I mean, I get it. So you do have to change with the times. I'm not saying. The message can stay the same, but your method has to change.
Right.
You can talk about, death, but you can really talk about the sacrifices that people made. Mm-hmm. The struggles and then you need to talk about the results. People need to know, like Rosa Parks. It wasn't just she just rode in the back of the bus or she refused to get on the back of the bus. That's all people know about her. They don't know what she went through, the name calling, her life was threatened. They could have killed her. They could have, so many things could have went wrong. You just say she, or even in lunch counter encounters, nobody talks about how they got spit on, they got punched, they got smacked, they got attacked, all kind of stuff. Everybody just says the count. You know what I mean? So things have been so watered down. So when I don't know the backdrop behind it, it's like this. We always got to get a sports analogy. It's like no, because sports people understand the sports analogy, yes. and I'll use Jalen Hurts for an example. People looked at him and said, okay, we got all these question marks about what he could do, based on what he did last year. Then nobody paid attention to the hard work he was doing, what he was putting in behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. They didn't see that part.
Right.
So they came back thinking they got all his question marks. He didn't, but he put the work in, I think. So he knows it and his teammates know that's why they follow him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the same thing. We expect people to follow people, and people don't know the history, man. Obama was very good because he was charismatic. He was very good on yes, we can. He had a message, he had a theme, and he tied it in, and he talked a little bit about history.
So
what he talked about
local level politicians, man, you're not really that charismatic. Some of them.
No, I agree. But we gotta have a high. But see, that's why you gotta vote because we gotta have a higher standard. If I know that only a third of the population is voting, I'm going to deal with that third of the population.
We need an easier way to relay some of these messages and better support people that we know can benefit.
Because I'm going to be honest, half the battle is not even knowing when half these days are to vote. Like I know the age is like that day just because that's ingrained in my mind.
Well, that's a shame you don't know.
But outside of that, sometimes it's like it just goes by sometimes.
But I think like
and I'm gonna be honest, I know because it's always around my birthday. Sometimes my birthday falls on a day. Mm-hmm. It's always the same week. That never changes. So I do know.
Yeah,
I do know that. But again, my parents, that was something they talked about all the time. The importance of voting. Which is why they made me learn Black history. Why I made you learn Black history. Yeah. They made me understand the value in it. And the things is different because I think the other part we deal with now is I think America has done a great job of selling us a phony bill of goods. And what I mean by a phony bill of goods, because we look at the progression we made and we think we have it made and we don't. It's like when I hear somebody say, we don't need the NAACP no more. Right now, they're trying to abolish, they're trying to, people don't notice, but they're trying to abolish, get rid of the affirmative action rules for colleges. They trying to get rid of it. So colleges no longer have to have so many spaces for African Americans. Mm-hmm. And there's black folk out there who think we don't need it. And I'm gonna tell you the funny thing about it, because if it was me, if they overturned it, and this is my sidebar, if I was a black athlete, I'm going to HBCU, man. Seriously, I would fix them. I wouldn't even play for them schools anymore. Y'all want to keep it like that? I see all y'all there.
Those they still gonna keep those spots.
Yes,
they're not gonna change.
But we don't fight those battles, or even in church. And I'll put church on the spot. You talked about the one issue, because I heard that too when I'm talking to people in the research, and people talk about abortion, and and they hold on to that issue. My problem with it is it's so many other issues along with that. Mm-hmm. That's the first point I want to make is I'm against abortion. Please understand it. But there's so many other issues like voters' rights. If they take away their right, people talk about this Roe versus Wade, but they didn't take slavery off the books. Yeah. Lynching is still legal in states.
Voters' rights, education.
But lynching is still legal in states. But everybody's arguing about, how is that pro-life when I can hang you? So there's so many other things that we're missing the boat because, to your point, society does a good job of pushing the one message.
Yeah, and we forget
about the holistic approach. Like your mom said to me today that somebody close to us wanted to know they're Democrats because they vote Republican. And I know why, because they're Christian, the abortion thing. But they're missing the point in everything else. Black people are undereducated. Our schools are underfunded. We're prosecuted at twice the rate of any other ethnicity. There's so many things wrong in our community, man. We talked about suicide. Yeah, there's not enough resources. There's not enough resources in schools to talk to these kids, man, about when they're having issues, they're having problems. How to deal with stress. There's so many other issues. And to me, pro-life is a holistic thing. It's not in the womb.
So I got a question
for you. But when you don't vote, you allow that stuff to continue to go.
So we of course are encouraging people to vote.
Fred?
Of course, want to educate people as well, but it's just what age do you think we start teaching kids and talking to them about it?
Middle school.
Because I'm thinking honestly,
middle school.
Because no, for real, I think that might be appropriate.
You make it fun. When I did that, the kids loved it.
When I hear about it too, when it's time to register to vote, it's probably when people start talking about it.
You can make it fun, man. You can have the kids be a candidate. There's a project I want to do. Well, you have Zoom now. So you can have kids actually like they're on TV. Set the camera up on the Zoom, man, and you can have a debate.
That'd be funny.
And you can have a debate. The two candidates or two people who work for me, man, they talked about recess. They talked about recess, food for lunch. Kids would listen to, and some of them, they were purposely promising stuff, man. Like one guy was saying, yeah, man, we got recess all day long. And kids was like, yeah, but not understanding that he can't do that. You can't do that.
That's what you should have had to debate and then have to answer those stuff.
Well, he did. He did. But the point I'm making, that happens to adults because people promise us stuff and it kind of tickles our ears. Mm-hmm. So, but if you start to educate people in middle school in a fun way, almost not like the interview, but like the game. We were talking about the game last week. If you make it fun, and then as they get older, they understand the principles. So when you get to high school, like in a lot of Caucasian schools, they have debate teams. Yeah. They have debate teams. They have political science in some of these schools. They have teachers who teach about the political system. I'm not saying tell them to vote Democrat or tell them Republican, but
just how it works.
Yeah, how it works. How the Electoral College got the way it is. How because people didn't vote, people got in office. Like I look at Oz and Fetterman, and I'll say it. Oz is telling you what he's going to do. He's telling you he's going to cut Medicare, Obamacare. He's telling you all the stuff he's going to do. But he's pro-life. So people are going to say, yeah, we're going to vote for him. So he's pro-life. We won't have abortion, but you want to die from a common cold now. Yeah. You want, African-American women are more likely to die giving birth than any other ethnic group. Right. So now you think that number is going to double when you start taking away Medicare and you start taking away benefits and things. So the whole point I'm making is if you don't vote, you allow this stuff to happen. Yeah. And somebody says, well,
or to the point too, if you vote on one issue.
But people do, because why do you think they run on one issue?
Yeah, because they know it gets people emotionally invested, and then they know they kind of got them hooked.
Man, if you study politics, the Republicans are running on pro-life for as long as I can remember. They don't talk about it for 3.5 years. And then a half year before election, everybody becomes pro-life. You don't hear it any other time, but it works because people, especially people in church, they hear it and they jump on it. And I'm voting for this person. Forget everything else is going on.
Right.
Forget the fact that maybe we're going to war now. Forget the fact that that our neighborhoods, man, are war zones. Our schools are underfunded. Forget all that. But we're pro-life. And then it's so funny because a lot of those candidates who are pro-life, they vote to cut social programs. So now you're saying you want to make the person
I want you to live,
but the same social program. Yeah. So I think you can't have it both ways. Pro-life to me is okay. You want to help people who are down and out. That's pro-life too. It's not just it's not just Tony Evans said it's from it's from the tomb. It's from the womb to the tomb.
Yeah.
So and I think we have to get back to when you don't vote or you vote on one issue, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we have to better educate people, but one, and you also got to let people, I think to me, you need people attend, you have the more, town hall meetings where people can hear more.
So like a community level type thing.
Yeah.
I think, yes. That is.
But even
hall.
But even TV, but you also got to, I think to me, you also got to deal with issues that are relevant to the population.
Yes.
Like young people. Joe Biden, perfect example. Him and Sanders. They knew student loans was going to resonate with everybody.
I was about to say,
that thing was student loans across culture. But the realization of it all is, I didn't vote for him because of that, because that's almost impossible for him to make it happen. I hope he does make it happen. Pray. Proceed before you preach. It does. But if you look at the economic ramifications behind it, it's going to be how many people he will need in politics to go along with him, and how many politicians are in bed with banks who are not going to give up that money coming on the side. It's a hard thing to do, but it resonated with people. Now people, I ain't voting because you didn't do the student loan thing. Forget everything else. Because we that's what happens in our society. We can sell. We good at that. People are good at the one point.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's just easy to get people emotionally invested in something. Yeah. And once you get that, you can
strike a nerve, man.
Yeah, swing in this way any other way.
So real fast, I just want to confirm. Y'all say we should start in middle school.
Yeah, I think you start in middle school.
See, I think the
quick games in a fun way.
I think like the perfect age would be like, high, like 15, 16. Because I feel like when you get because when you get to 15, 16, you're a little more.
I don't know, man.
A little more mature than I would assume, like a 13-year-old.
You're a little more stubborn, a little more hard-headed.
True.
When you get 15, 16 years old, you don't want to hear what you don't want to hear. When you're young, you're more open.
You're a little bit more impressionable.
Yeah, when you're young, you're open. When you're 15, 16 years old, it's like, I don't like it.
Just because you don't like the topic. I feel like it would be more fresh in my head.
I
don't mean to teach people to. You can teach people the process, just like you teach fractions and you teach addition. You teach people the process in a fun way. And I want to go back to we were trying to drag it out in the cash flow game last week. The game that you want to teach people about finance, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
And you put up the question of perfect question. You put up the question about the board game is cool, but what about TV, because all the kids on their phone when you ask about the electronic version of it. You got to think about that and say, just like, hopefully not watching, just like in that same context, he didn't think about it. You got to think about that in politics. Everything we do, you got to understand the times we live in.
Right.
This is no more the time when you give somebody a textbook or, you stick them in a 45-minute class and put on a film projector and let it run. People are visually stimulated. Perfect. Why do you think rap music is in so many commercials? Because they know it gets people attention.
Yeah.
I look at some of these commercials and the music has nothing to do with the commercial. I'm like, yeah.
But then I to your point about just kind of going with these things that are visually stimulating, like that's how some people are voting. Honestly, like I go.
No, I agree.
The commercial that I seen, or the thing that.
But it's like being in high school. Yo, what's up, Todd? It's like being in high school. In high school, when it's funny because you run for the class president.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, most people vote because they like the person. They don't hear anything the person says, man. Nobody ever says I voted for so-and-so because they spoke of substance.
Right there.
Yeah, because it was great substance in what they said. No, either she was fine or he was popular and you voted. Even if you never was going to get a date with her, oh, you pulled it up. And so I think, that's translated into politics, and especially in our community, and we get sold the bill of goods every election time, man. I'm telling you, oh, we're going to make the schools better. Well, it's gotten worse.
So it's like, how do you hold these people accountable? You keep saying vote.
Don't vote for them. The next time around, you vote for somebody, you don't vote for them. What? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again for different results.
What if you just feel like the pool of candidates are just like...
But then you know what? There's power. If people would get together, and again, I'm not picking on the church, but I'll say the church. If the church got together and said, you know what, we're going to get us a candidate. We're going to get us a candidate that represents the people. There's enough votes in the church to get somebody like that, man. There's enough votes in the church, just in the church. There's more churches than McDonald's in this country. If people got together and said, you know what, I'm going to put my own selfish interests aside and not get a candidate who's going to look out for me. What we're going to, that's what happened with Obama. Everybody got behind him because they, thought he was not the perfect candidate, because he wasn't, because people thought he was, he was too much on the homosexual side, and he was too liberal when it came to the borders. And so everybody wasn't 100% on his side, but he got the majority of people on his side because he knew how to communicate with people.
Yeah, I wish we had something more community based, with the church included, as well as other places, that was just like continuous education about voting and local politicians.
How would you get everyone to agree on one person? People are different. Churches are different.
Well, you give them a pool, but you're never gonna get everybody to agree on. That's just not gonna happen, man, because you have some people like let's look at the NRA. That's the perfect example. You have some people, because they're getting $1 million from the NRA, that's never going to go against. They ain't not going to vote against the NRA, man, because my pocket's getting lined. It's not.
Other lobbyists.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, it's not going to happen. That's just like people who figured out, we can make money off cannabis, man. Yeah, we lock people up for it, but now we can sell it and make a profit. So you're not going to get everybody, but you have to start somewhere. You start getting people together, even with a small group of people. Just like Obama's campaign was founded off of grassroots, knocking on doors, recruiting people, and you got to do the same thing. To me, young people should get a candidate. There's enough young people out there to get a candidate or a pool of candidates and say, hey, and when you lose, you back the candidate. You don't talk about the candidate like a dog now because you didn't make it. Now all of a sudden politics is rigged because they didn't vote for you. You back the candidate. And we got to do a better job of that. But it also goes back to education.
Need more and better outlets for education. I feel like.
I agree, but you do. Colleges should have a class, man. There should be a class in college, man, telling people about politics, man. There should be a mandatory class talk about the electoral. But yeah, I know they don't, because if you control the few people who vote, you control the country.
You just got to major in it.
Yeah, but they should be mandatory. If you control a few people, if there's 500 people, and I know 10 people in that room has the clout, man, I'm focusing on 10 people. Forget them other 490 people, because I know they're gonna follow 10 people. And it's the same thing. So why do I want everybody voting if I know I just gotta control the 10?
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with this system.
That's why, see, and it's kind of like the dog chasing his tail. That's why you gotta vote, so you can get those people out. This system is broken, and I'll be the first to say, whether you're libertarian, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, the system needs to be fixed. But it's not going to be fixed until you start to tear it down and people vote different people. And nobody should be in office 30 years and done nothing. That's crazy that you're in office 30 years, and some of these people in Washington, D.C., man, who, like, for instance, Kentucky. You live in the state of Kentucky.
We need to raise politicians.
You're in Kentucky. Your people from Kentucky votes against every social. Kentucky is one of the poorest states in the country, and they vote against every social program. Why do you keep voting for this dude?
Because they can get it themselves.
No, because he plays the race card. So they so caught up on the race card, they forget they sacrifice their real needs, because that's how this country works. I'm going to distract you with some crazy stuff. I'm going to distract you with abortion. Meanwhile, I'm taking away your voting rights. Meanwhile, your schools are dilapidated. Meanwhile, it's easier for your kids to go to prison than to go to college. Hey, but we're pro-life. And I'm pro-life, but we're so easily distracted, or they'll tell you your vote don't matter.
You know what's crazy though now, 2 days, like, that makes it why some people probably don't vote, because it's like you got 9 politicians that's just jumping in the game too. Like, the politicians aren't doing what they supposed to do, and then now you have people who.
But it's uneducated
Haters
people.
now.
It's what's uneducated people, like people who voted, and I'm gonna get. It's like people who voted for Trump, and they say they voted for Trump because he wasn't a politician. Well, I'm not gonna pick the quarterback to quarterback my team, and he's not a quarterback. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. You know, and since we talking about people like this Herschel Walker, the stuff that comes out of his mouth, man, it's like I think he should be in concussion protocol.
I mean,
he got to be in concussion protocol.
Oh,
But people would have voted for this dude because they want to. We got to get some checks and balances in there, so we got to get some Republicans.
He needs checks and balances.
Yes. But people will vote for him just because that's what's wrong with the system, man. And people got to turn out and vote, say, no, we're not putting somebody in office like that. You know, I was watching them trying to explain manhood, and it was like watching McKinsey trying to explain, you know, a nuclear thing. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he just something as simple as manhood. And I'm thinking, like, I can talk to my 3-year-old grandson who could articulate better than this dude.
Yeah.
So, but people says, well, I'm not going to vote. So he can win because people don't vote. He can win.
Yeah. I think that's kind of again a testament.
That is scary.
What we're saying the issue is currently, you know, like people. If you don't do anything, then anyone like that can just step in.
Yeah, because all you got to do is get enough people to vote for him, and you promise enough people stuff, and you know they go for it, man. And you know who to promise them. You know, you go to the neighborhood who you tell, like if you tell a certain group of people.
I don't know if we're deterring people to vote.
No, we're telling them why they gotta vote. This is why you can't stop the nonsense unless you participate in the system. And I talked about it earlier. You can't. You know, there's an old saying that says a closed mouth don't get fed.
Of course.
But to your point, why would you participate in a system that you just said was broken?
Because that's how you fix it. You can't fix it unless you participate in it. You can't fix it unless you get involved in it.
From the inside. Inside job.
This perfect example is like you playing basketball. I never forget. I'm in college sitting there, and I did something bonehead. I forget what I did. And the coach pulled me out, and I'm sitting there, and it's like 5 minutes to go in the game, and he's telling me all this stuff we need to do, and I'm sitting there. So finally it gets down to about 3 minutes of the game, and the assistant coach leans over and said, well, if you don't put him back in the game, he can't do any of that. so it's the same thing. You know, when I'm sitting over here, I can tell you all kind of stuff, but if I don't put you back out there,
you can't put it in the application.
Yeah, so if you don't participate, you can't fix it. And people have to participate in the system, and now they have to be educated. And we can talk about the ages, you know. And I know people are going to hate when I say this, you know. Just like I did with you, there needs to be some home education too.
So I know we're talking about education. Like, are you just saying about voting, or in a general sense? Because there is definitely a correlation between the two, anyway.
I mean, both. I mean, and it's funny because there is a correlation because they say people. It's funny because they say people with higher education are more likely to vote. They do say that.
They do say that.
The
numbers show that.
I don't think it's just education.
To be less educated, you don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's just education. I think because they have a tendency to make more money, so they have more at stake. I think that's my humble opinion. You know, if I'm making 6 figures versus minimum wage, I care about taxes. You know, most people make a minimum wage just trying to make it. They're just trying to make it.
The population makes that much money. That's right. Like,
you want to have a percentage. You just need enough to win, man. You know, if there's 10,000 people in the neighborhood, and I can get 5,000 people to vote, I don't need those other 5,000 people, man, because I won. Because I got the majority of people who voted. Not the majority of people in the district. I convinced the majority of people who voted, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get it, but still.
But that's what they do, and we got to understand, man, that we got to get up and vote. We got to say, hey, like if I'm talking to somebody, they complain if they didn't vote, this conversation over. I'm not having this conversation.
But if you don't mess with people that
no, I'm not. I'm not going to talk about the issues.
Just like the commercial.
Why am I going to talk about the issues if you didn't vote? What's the point?
That's what we need to start telling people.
What's the point?
Like, yo, if you didn't vote, you don't get to talk.
You want to complain, and then did you vote? No. You know, this conversation over, man. And they look at me like, oh, yeah, it's like that. I'm wasting my time.
People aren't going to be truthful if they vote.
It's like talking to Dallas Cowboy fans, man. They just don't get it. I had to say that because I know we got some watching. No, but seriously, I think people have to vote, man. There's power in your vote, and every vote does matter. the electoral college is kind of, they redistrict things, they kind of reshape things so electoral college is in their favor. And that's because we allow people to get in there to change the district, to change the way they vote, to change the boundaries.
Like, what are, I would say, you think are key things that are on the docket that people should kind of, I guess, take into account when they are voting?
Well, I think voters' rights is the first thing, because if you look, it's only happening in areas where it's predominantly African American. They're trying to suppress the vote in areas where African Americans or minorities got
around the country.
Yeah, around the country. You know, Georgia, states like that. A lot of red states that turned blue.
And PA,
that Trump thought he was going to win. Yeah, that Trump thought he was going to win. They're trying to change the voting laws because they want to turn them back blue again.
It's happening here too.
Yeah. What do you think ours is? I don't even live in Pennsylvania. I just moved to Pennsylvania to run, and people voting for this dude. He moved in with his mother-in-law.
I heard that.
That's the only thing I heard.
But okay, well, let's look at that. That's the perfect example. You voted for somebody who you know sold phony pills that didn't work, and you're gonna put he dishonest already, and you don't give him access to your money. Yo, you're gonna put him in charge of other stuff. I mean, you sold phony pills. Now, see, if I did that, I would be a con man.
Yeah.
I would be a scam man. I would be defrauding.
You made it this far.
Yeah, I would be defrauding. But he did it on national TV and got rich off of it. And you want to reward him by voting for him? That's what I'm talking about. That's just ignorance in politics.
Yeah, but that's to the point he could just run off at one point.
But how many people are not going to vote and allow him to get in? That's the problem. That's the problem, man. How many people are going to not vote now because I'm fed up?
Yeah,
I'm not voting, man. So now he just go. But so the people who want to control the system, they all going to vote. And then we're going to be sitting there wondering about why I'm losing my rights. How come I don't have health care? I can't take my baby down.
The game just feels so rigged, and so dirty.
Life is rigged. Come on, man. You know that. I raised you better than that. Life is not fair.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I feel like I just have
Still gonna get my vote out there in the world.
Let me tell you, that's another. We gotta stop thinking life is fair, man. It ain't fair. It's never been fair for us.
I like that.
I understand that.
It's never been fair for us.
I understand that. And kind of to your point earlier, it's about you kind of got to get in the game in order to feel like
I don't want to put a damper on this, and I know somebody's going to put a damper on this. Did you realize that this World Series right here, this is the first World Series since the 1950s that an African American has not participated in?
They're not playing?
Not on any roster.
And the coach does.
He's not. He's the manager, man. Okay, you want to say the manager, but he's not on a roster. But ain't that? But isn't that? And I'm not blaming them because that's the way. But isn't that crazy? You talk about how things are starting to revert back the other way. That's crazy. Yeah. And the same thing going to happen if you don't vote. Things are slowly going to start to revert back the way they were. If they take away voting rights, hey, what's going to happen, man? If they take away your voting rights, how are you going to fix schools? Because you can't vote on anything.
Right.
If they take away your voting rights, how do you want to ever say where the money goes in the country? Because they're going to take the money and going to continue to push. I feel funny saying this because I do live in the suburbs. They're going to continue to push money to the suburbs. When you
ain't have to tell them that.
Well, I'm just saying so.
Location where you live.
But I'm just saying most people are listening know that. So what I'm saying is, man, we got to make sure, man, because we sit back and our school's underfunded when you didn't vote.
People always complain about stuff that's going on in the community, whether that's
but you don't vote.
They feel like they're unsafe. Like you said, the buildings falling apart, underfunded, like schools, trash.
So why don't we,
But I'm gonna tell you, this is hilarious. And this is the funniest thing I think is the most ironic thing that I hear people say. Especially our people. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that. When they tell me I got a right. You don't vote. What are you talking about? But they say, I know I got a right to what? And they kill me with that. That's my right. What are you talking about?
You never vote before, you never exercise it. So
but they tell you I got a right or freedom. What?
Never
You didn't even vote to stay free. And I think we have to be careful, man. And, I know my rights, but you don't even vote to protect your rights. Yeah. And what we have to understand, if it happens in Georgia, they're going to try another state. And they're going to try another state. And they're going to try another state. And that's what you do. You have politicians who already said that if they win, they're going to overturn some of these elections, man. To make sure they stay in power. It's crazy.
This is about to turn into an authoritarian state.
But you don't vote. Okay, another perfect example. And I got a million of them. Nancy Pelosi, her husband got attacked in the house, 85-year-old man hitting the head with a hammer. And you got politicians making fun of that. And people are going to vote for them. You got politicians think that's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sick world. The game is.
But why would you vote? Because guess what? That's the same person. If you're going to laugh because somebody hitting the hammer, how are you going to fix crime in my neighborhood?
I think.
What are you saying when black people shoot black people?
What
That's
has
funny
shown,
too.
like over the past years, Donald Trump has probably kind of contributed to this. It's like this lack of morals within politics now. Like they just.
But it's acceptable.
They don't even hide anything anymore.
I agree with you.
They have made it acceptable.
But I only blame him to a certain extent.
He's like enticed.
He don't exist if you don't vote for him. So when I hear people talk about America, and America is still the greatest country, if you don't, people voted for him. So you cannot vote for him. And in all honesty, I've had, the history. I'm not a part of an organization anymore because of that. Because you can't tell me you're going to vote for somebody who does not like people who look like me, but I'm okay. It don't work for me. And it shouldn't work for anybody. It shouldn't be because I'm not in the category of poor people, and they talk about poor people, so that's those people. No. It shouldn't be like that, because what people fail to realize is, if it's just like a racist. If a racist says, I just don't like Indian people, you better believe he don't like other. He's just saying it because I'm in a room.
No, you're a different brown.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is we fall for this all the time. And Trump got power because people vote. People still vote for him. To me, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not telling anything. If I stand for something and the person I'm voting for votes for something that I'm totally against, not just one issue, but holistically, why am I going to vote for this person?
I think that's a good point too. People got to start thinking about this stuff holistically.
Yeah.
Like stop kind of making these decisions just off of one stance or one thing. Like there's no one person that you're going to agree with 100% of the time on everything.
I don't agree with my wife. She's not watching. I don't agree with my wife 100% of the time. I don't.
So it's like when it comes to like making these political decisions, I think that, like you said, you got to kind of look at it as a whole and like think about like, man, what attributes and qualities and things that I have an interest in that can potentially benefit us all.
So why and how do we start our own political party to make sure it benefits?
Everyone wants to
above average black man political party.
I don't think you have to start your own. I know people, because you're not the first person to say that to me. I don't think you need to start a political party. I think you could bring character integrity to the party you
do. You start voting different?
And it starts with you getting around like-minded people. The premise of this show. It starts you gathering people who think like you. You gather people, who agree, not on everything, but your basic principles along. Like they want to see the schools improve. They want to do something about the crime in the neighborhoods. They want to do something about the number of African Americans that are being killed by police and no justice is being done. They want to do something about a system that African American women who are pregnant in 2022 are dying at a faster rate. More African Americans are going to I forget what they call them now, the personal birthing people and not hospitals, because they have more confidence because they're dying in hospitals. Those things we can come together with. We may not agree that we got to sing Amazing Grace the same note, whether you wear pants or a skirt. We need all not be Eagle fans or all Cal or whatever it is, but those basic things we can agree on as a society. How do we improve society as a whole? Because if your schools are not better, your community is not going to be better. And if communities start to fall, society is what we see now. You can't build a successful country with uneducated people. It just don't work.
Right.
Because everybody else is using educated people to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you got to go to college, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying.
No.
But so you can't vote for somebody that's not, I could be totally selfish. And I had this conversation. I could be totally selfish. Look, my kids graduated college, man. I could just say, I don't have to do it. Forget this, man. But I still got to live in this world. And I think we all have to take the approach, man, that I need, like me, I'm not, I agree with what you said. I think sometimes candidates are slim pickings.
Yes.
I do. So I look at them, and I hate to say what I'm about to say, but sometimes you got to take the lesser of the two evils. But when you don't vote, you allow the greater of the two evils to get in. And that's the problem. But back to your point, if everybody says, when I'm going to invite 5 of my friends, we're going to get together, man. We're going to start talking about a strategy. we're going to go to the Democratic meeting and we're going to be heard. Like I go to these, I used to go to the meetings and I stopped going to the meetings because, and young people told me the same thing, and I'm sure it happened on the other side of the fence. All they kept talking about was defeating Trump. What you gonna do when you defeat him, though?
That's all.
That's what I need to know.
Right.
Great. We know. We all agree we want to defeat him, but what's the plan? What's the plan? How are we going to benefit? How are we going to? People are starving in 2022. Man. It's crazy, and we're squabbling about. And I know somebody's agreeing with me, and we're squabbling about pro-life. We're arguing pro-life, and all the other things are wrong in society right now.
I know.
And I'm pro-life. I can't say it enough. I'm a Christian, so please don't be talking about But that's not the only issue on the table right now.
Nah.
But that's all we're focused on. We're and that's done on purpose. They put it out there because we jump on that, and everything else they sneaking around us.
Yeah.
Schools, like I said, schools are being dilapidated. From money taken from education. They're working on voter rights. Incarceration. Prisons are for profit now.
Which should be a problem.
Yeah, but nobody's talking about that because they threw this one issue out there, and we focused on this one issue. And for those who do vote, we vote on this one issue.
But that's the crazy thing. Like, we're just cycling through how all these other different issues or topics that are out there, So it's like, how do you kind of find out all of the things that are going on, and like, how do we kind of encourage people to vote on the things that are important to them?
Well, I think you have to, and I hate to keep saying it, but you kind of got to start in school. We can debate about the age because that's the only place where you, for lack of a better term, you have a captive audience. Because realistically, if you say you're going to do it at a rec center, folk ain't showing up.
No, like on some extracurricular.
They're not going to show up.
Here.
They're not going to show up. But so you have to start in school, man. You have to start finding some kind of way to kind of introduce people to it at an early age, at least to think about the process, to understand the importance of the process. When I grew up, I went to a school called Stokely School. It was a small school in North Philadelphia. It doesn't exist anymore, but I remember being in the social studies class, and we learned about the Electoral College. There used to be a show that came on TV. I can't think, when they used to sing a song, "The bill is just a bill."
Schoolhouse
Rock. And you learned about the electoral process and things like that. You have to find ways to introduce people. It's pretty hard when somebody becomes an adult because they get fixed into that whole notion that I don't care.
Yeah. I know we just got a few minutes left, so I'll say kind of one of my last things. Like, I know one thing we touched upon, we talk about educating in terms of learning about voting, but I think what is key is just a general education. Like, you need the ability to be able to critically think.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes all these things are getting thrown out. You got to be able to sometimes try to decipher through some of this, the jargon and nonsense that's being thrown out here, so you can see and really listen to what's important. I think that's why people get caught on one issue, because it's just easy. And then part of that is the lack of just like, some people are as educated
but it's
to
on
try
purpose.
to broaden their scope.
But it's on purpose. It's on purpose. It's a cloak and dagger, because if I can, it's just like when I was growing up, they used to say, my father used to say this to me all the time, but why you gotta learn how to read? Because the running joke was that if you want to hide something from black people, you hide in the book. At the same token, if I keep you ignorant, I keep you poor. Mm-hmm. If I keep you ignorant and poor, I'll always control you. Will never go any higher than I allow you to go. And that formula is still present. It's still prevalent in the United States today. Yeah. And that, whether we want to admit that it's true or not, you can't tell me that people in politics are not sitting there saying that, wow, why is Spring Cheltenham is so much better than the school right across the city in Philadelphia? Why? People know that. Why is Lower Merion here? And they said, people know that. Yeah. It's no secret. It's like they don't know that just like when I hear people talk about the pandemic. Oh, well, what do you think is going to happen when this kid ain't been in school for 2 years? They know that. So we got to start. There has to be a plan, and action has to take place. And it starts with people exercising their right to vote, to get rid of these knuckleheads who are not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's not going to happen overnight. Right. But you got to let people know. If people start realizing that they're not going to get reelected, watch how their attitude change. Because that's a lifetime job for some of them.
Yeah, they really just be doing it because they
Come on, man. I'm making six figures. Right. I'm making six figures. I got a Cadillac Plan Healthcare. I got a sweet job. I'm on they go on vacation 2-3 times a year. And I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, they don't do anything but walk around and talk smack.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we just got to start actually voting and holding people to the fire and
Well, we got 4
getting
minutes. So
them
y'all
out
can
of
close out.
office. So, I mean, I already kind of said my spiel. Like I said, education is key, man. And hopefully, we can start to have the same type of, I guess, zest or zeal to vote for our kind of primaries, local elections. You know, it's not just about the presidency. Like, I know it's kind of easy to kind of get worked up and, you know, watch the debates, especially the past few years have been entertaining. But, you know, I feel like the other our local elections are just as important and actually kind of are more impactful in our day-to-day life.
It is. Because you got a better chance of talking to state senator than you do the president of the United States of America.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, Deb, I don't know if you got any last words. Like, Mark's already know what that is. Drop it.
Yeah, my last words are just to remind everyone just to, you know, be safe out there. It kind of just seems like, you know, a lot of people are just passing away in general, especially of color. You know, even some of the most affluent of us, you know, are becoming easily touchable. So I just want to urge everyone just to be safe out there, be on your P's and Q's, you know, watch yourself and get rid of any negative energy or any negative feelings like that, and just love one another.
Man, I gotta give
chaos.
I gotta give a shout out to Mustangs for Life, man, because I see all those Darvinites on the screen tonight, man. Yeah, in the house tonight.
You be plugging your schools.
Well, yo, they don't. That's who's talking to me in the chat today.
Kindergarten to college.
I didn't mention the college, but that's who's one in the chat tonight, man. The Mustangs, man. So I gotta say Mustangs for Life, man. Oh man, see you guys in Mexico next year. Oh man, thanks for tuning in, man. That'll be a great episode of Above Average Black Men, and welcome back, man.
Appreciate y'all.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back. Glad to have you back.
I'm going to be taking another trip soon. I'm here like every other week now. Oh man, kind of got a headache.